Hi everyone, JoshKnightTheFirst here with another Ex-Aid replay, this time talking about episode 3 of the series Kamen Rider Ex-Aid. So we are getting into this full blast this week. I am very happy to report that this was probably the most entertaining episode thus far. Of course, there's a lot of room to grow on that, but this was really balls-to-the-wall action-y, and I'm very happy about that, so let's just get right into it. So first and foremost, this episode focuses on the character Taiga Hanaya, or otherwise known as Kamen Rider Snipe. Now, Snipe's style is based off a shooting game. You know, shooty bang bang, which goes along with the title of the episode, The Bang Guy's Coming, which sounds very rude, but the thing about it is the ban there in the opening is meant like the Japanese onomatopoeia for the sound of banging, which goes along with the gasha that he uses, bang bang shooting. It would sound more like ban ban, you know, kind of a onomatopoeia there, so that makes sense for the use of that. It's interesting to see that going into this episode we see that Taiga has a lot of history already here in the series. Apparently he was tapped to be the go-to Kamen Rider about 5 years ago when this big incident happened when the Bugsters first arrived. He was going to be the Kamen Rider, but then for some reason he decided he didn't want to do that. He was asked by the Genom Corporation and by CR to go ahead and do this job, but for whatever reason he doesn't want to do it. Since then, he's been listed as a disgraced doctor, so he does things by his own means, for his own reasoning. The thing about it is he seems to want the gashots from the other writers in the series for some unknown reason. My guess would be he wants it for some sort of power he thinks they have, but we're not quite sure of that yet. We haven't been told. I do think it's very important to realize that there's a couple of things visually about Taiga that some American fans might not get, but Japanese fans absolutely would pick up on. The biggest thing being his design. The fact that he's a disgraced, unlicensed doctor and the white streak in his hair definitely is a callback to the very popular series Blackjack, which was originally produced by Osamu Tezuka and has been running for a very long time over in Japan, that being a story about a disgraced doctor who doesn't work through the system. That's obviously a parallel there, at least to me. Now, aside from how he does his job or why he's doing his job, that's only part of the episode. The bigger part, of course, is the fighting, you know, actually going up against the Bugstars. And the thing about it is, I'm very happy to see that this episode, which happens to be directed by Koichi Sakamoto, who is famous for working on Power Rangers and other tokusatsu episodes, brought that awesome Hong Kong action into this episode. From about the 12-minute mark and on, it's just action, 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 guns, shooting, jumping, fighting. It's amazing. I love it. Some of the interesting things about the fight were early on in the episode when Taiga first transforms into Snipe. The Bugstar that he's fighting has taken on the shape of a giant Derringer, and so Taiga in his level 1 form has to take him on. The funny thing about that is, in order to defeat him for that first part of the episode, he rotates and throws himself at the Bugster into the shape of a bullet. So understand this, he's shooting at a gun as a bullet. I don't know if that's meta or what, but there it was, that's what they gave us. Later on in the episode, when he actually goes to level 2 for Snipe, it's very easy to see that this is probably the kind of guy who mains McCree in Overwatch, because he's just there mowing down guys, doing a barrel roll to go ahead and go into level 2. He has the same sort of lock-on, high noon sort of feature that McCree has to go ahead and take out many of the Bugsters at once, which is very impressive, and of course goes along with Koichi Sakamoto's style. Much the same, it's very nice to see Ex-Aid and Brave getting in on that fight too, seeing that they too want a piece of the action with their own unique styles. Ex-Aid doing the jumps from here to there, still good wire work. I am very happy you guys are learning your lessons from previous tokusatsu shows, and Brave of course manning his sword style. And since we had all three on screen, I think it's a good time to go ahead and bring up the BGM that they're using here on the show. I'm very happy that they're using this kind of a 16-bit throwback sort of vibe, but each one has a very specific sound to it. Ex-Aid is supposed to sound like a platformer, so his music is very upbeat. Brave sounds like RPG music, so you think kind of back to Super Nintendo era Final Fantasy games. And then with Snipe, it's kind of like, I don't know, something like a chiptune remix that you would expect to hear nowadays on YouTube, which I like. I think it fits his character quite well. Going into that fight though, it's nice to see that they're making even more use this week of the health bars on their chests. Poppy People Papo decides to tell them, hey, something we probably should have told you guys in episode 1, if you guys completely lose your bar, you will die. Which I am thankful for, because something I brought up in previous years is that the threat that's there in the series, or rather the audience perceiving the threat of the series, has felt kind of weak as of late. It's nice to see that there's an actual weight to the decisions that they make. If I don't fight correctly, if I don't do the right thing, if I don't save this person in the right order, there is actually a consequence. I could potentially die. Now, the interesting thing about that is, no sooner does she say that Ex-Aid Emu decides to go ahead and go forward when he's got like that much of a health bar on there, but he's taking bullets straight to the chest. So I don't know what the difference is there, if they're just doing chip damage or what, but I wish they would be more consistent with that, since they just told us there's a consequence to it. Also, what was interesting to see is that they've come up with a very interesting way of excusing scene jumping. So let me go ahead and explain that. Scene jumping is this thing that we take for granted in tokusatsu, where a character is fighting a monster in one scene, let's say a parking lot, and then the next scene they're in a canyon. That just kind of happens and people expect that to happen. What they've done here in Ex-Aid is that they're using the Kimiwaza slot on the side of the belt to go ahead and use this as screen select. They're using that to rationalize, well, we were in a parking lot one section, now we're in an abandoned rock quarry. Because that's the way video games work. You jump from level to level. And that's very much keeping within the motif that they've got there, and I appreciate that. This episode also seemed to focus on the fact that stress is the main factor that the Bugsters are using to focus on certain people over others. The example we use in this episode is the child that Emu is looking after, whose name is Yuki. When Yuki is under a lot of stress, that's what causes the Bugsters to manifest. But when Yuki continues to be scared as a result of all the fighting going on around him, that actually strengthens the Bugsters. A similar thing could be said of somebody battling a sickness. If you're sick to begin with, that's already bad. But if you're under some sort of psychological stress, that could make things worse. And then at the end of it all, there seems to have been this sort of contest between Emu and Taiga. Taiga, of course, is playing for keeps here, so he decides to challenge Emu. Hey, if I can go ahead and take out these Bugsters and you can't, then I get to keep your Gashot. Emu agrees to this, and then at the end of the episode, with Taiga getting the final kill shot, that prompts him to take his Mighty Action X Gashot away from him. Of course, we know he has to have it back by next week because the previews tell us so. This goes to show two very important things about the characters there. One, it shows that Taiga is very focused on his goal, for whatever reason he wants those Gashots, but two, the more important thing, I think, is that Emu is very focused on making sure that his patient is okay. Even if it cost him his Gashot, that doesn't matter. The number one thing of importance to him is that his patient has been cared for and has gotten the best possible treatment. Showing that decision on Emu's part makes him a very, very endearing character to kids watching this show. Because when you think about it, we kind of take for granted that you trust the guy in the suit. When a kid's going to a mall or a theme park and they see a Kamen Rider or even a Super Sentai team there, they're trained and preconditioned to trust the suit. But I think it goes a lot further when you've learned to trust the guy inside the suit, really the actor portraying the main character. And here, they're showing not just that this hero is a trustworthy character, but also this doctor is a trustworthy character. Really, as a whole, this episode was very well done. The pacing was nice and crisp. There was no fat on it, by which I mean it wasn't lingering too long on any one thing. It just kept going and going and going, and I appreciate how the pace has been consistent from episode 1 until now. It's telling a good story, it's staying focused, and it's staying the course. Going into next week's episode, though, we're going to be treated to the major reveal of Genm's level 3 form, which looks pretty goofy if you ask me, and also the debut of Kamen Rider Laser, who actually happens to be Emu's main mode of transportation. So overall, I really liked this episode. I'm very happy with this. I didn't think I was going to like Snipe as much as a character, but I have to admit, I really like how he looks. I like the way he fights, I like the way he transforms, I like his BGM, really I like everything about him. Usually by this point in any Kamen Rider series, I've decided that I like a certain character and I don't like a certain character. Really here, I don't hate anybody particularly. Maybe a little bit of poopy people popo, but that's my taste. But aside from that, I want to hear from you guys. What did you guys think of this episode? Who did you like? Who did you not like? What do you think is going to happen next week? So you guys can comment below, tell me what you thought, or you can talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnightTheFirst. This has been Kamen Rider Ex-Aid Replay, Episode 3, The Bang Guy's Coming. I'm JoshKnightTheFirst, and I will see you guys next week.